I'm Mark Debney, Principal from Genton. Pleased to be presenting Glenroy Station. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we're working, and in this case it's Wurundjeri land within the suburb of Glenroy, about 12 kilometres north of the city. So this is a level crossing removal project, so our brief was very much focused on the removal of the level crossing, which is the image on the top, the Glenroy Road crossing. The secondary objectives were upgrade the station and bus facilities, provide a certain amount of commuter parking and upgraded bike facilities. So it was a very transport focused, very functional brief. What we did through the design process was push in a couple of key areas, and I think in a way that resulted in a building that is for the benefit of the broader Glenroy community beyond just the kind of transport brief that we were given, which I'll unpack as we go through. So this is the centre of Glenroy. Of note is that there's kind of these two retail areas shown in blue. So the larger one to the west of the station centres around Post Office Place, which is in alignment roughly with where the station is. And then to the south is Wheatsheaf Road, which comes in at the angle. They're quite disconnected because of Glenroy Road, which is a very busy road, and because of the station precinct. And then also of note, there's several schools in pink off to the east, so there's a lot of pedestrian movement, particularly of school kids, going back across the station precinct to the retail zones. It's a very car-dominated centre of a suburb, apart from those two little streets, Post Office Place and Wheatsheaf Road, which are a bit more pedestrian-friendly, but the rest of it is pretty busy roads. This is what the station was. It's worth pointing out that pedestrian underpass, very unsafe, a lot of challenges with accessibility, but despite that it was actually very well used by the community, and that was the main east-west connectivity across the line. These are a series of axos to kind of summarise the key moves, and just for reference, north is now at the bottom right of the image. So this is what there was, some nondescript station buildings, and obviously the upgrade rail, which creates a barrier through the centre of the suburb. Because of the topography, the rail line had to go down, it couldn't go over, and putting the rail down in a trench isn't much better in terms of cutting off a suburb across two sides. So this was the first big thing we pushed for. On the left, this is what the broader client group wanted. It's kind of the standard model they've done in a lot of level crossings. You do the actual level crossing at the main road and you build the station as part of it, and that makes a lot of sense functionally. What we pushed for, and we were lucky to have a lot of support from stakeholders like council, was to flip it to the one on the right. So we put the station in alignment with Post Office Place and basically in alignment where that underpass was. And it also meant that then there were two pedestrian crossing zones at the road and then at the station itself. So then we had this, where this big trench, and then in yellow we had these two pedestrian crossing points across the corridor. So the next thing we did was to kind of grab the space between them. As early as we could, we started calling it a linear park, and we just kept doing that until eventually they gave up trying to put parking in there. And what it meant was we then had a continuous walkable pedestrian link from Wheatsheaf Road, across Glenroy Road, through the station and back to Post Office Place. We could then kind of fill it with activity, so we put buses in blue along the length of it, and we organised the station so that it could work as a 24-hour bridge and not just a station entry. Canopies at a scale that they could be visible from the key points, particularly from Glenroy Road as we'd moved it some distance away. We pulled out the form to really emphasise this east-west primary crossing point and station entry. And then we cut it in the middle because we found with these projects that natural light is crucial for a positive uplifting experience within a public station. And so this is kind of the resulting form, and this is viewed from the eastern side. So the station is designed to be appropriate to its scale as a suburban station, but then large enough that it's really visible from these key viewpoints, in particular back to Glenroy Road, where the station is pointing back to on the left, and then opening for that entry point. And then these are the points where we've flared out the canopy on the sides and curved out the facade. The idea being that when you're approaching it from north or south, it should intuitively tell you which way to go. And then the materiality is also supporting that. So it's deliberately fairly dull. It's a dull, darker coloured skin contrasted with a vibrant, bright interior. And that also is designed to kind of emphasise that key point of the project. While we did want it to be a certain scale, we also want it to feel bunkered down a little bit and sheltered. And it's kind of conceived as a bit of an archway that's opening up at this point, and this is the alignment of that main crossing. The materials palette is very simple. It's really referencing two things. The topography, so the basalt that was being excavated from the trench was an important reference, and then the local industry that was adjacent to the station and within the historic infrastructure of the rail was copper. And those two elements were chosen for that contrast. So the dullness and the darkness of basalt, which we kind of achieved through powder coating of the metal and a rough finish to the concrete, contrasted to obviously the sheen and vibrancy of the metal cladding internally. The other key thing we could do with this project was an opportunity to revegetate central Glenroy, which didn't have a lot of vegetation or green space. And so that shows the full kind of kilometre or so of the subject site, and you can get a sense of the vegetation. Also shown in the three images on the bottom, that's really now that journey between those two retail activity centres. So on the left is the connection back to Wheatsheath Road, where there's an opportunity for seating and respite. There's the linear park that we've created between Glenroy Road and the station, which gave us an opportunity for some greenery. And then there's another kind of seating area at Post Office Place. The journey through the station, so we deliberately arranged the station so that it could be shut down on either side, which is non-complying with what it's meant to be, but it meant that it could be open 24 hours. We could have had it at 6 metres, but we pushed for it to be 14 metres wide, so it did feel like a public space and not an entry. And then obviously we needed to have really good amenity for users as well. So natural light pouring down through the canopy as well as the waiting room, weather protection right down to the platform. And importantly, the form, the location of the station, they're all driving towards making it feel like it's a space that can be occupiable by members of the public, not just people using the train. And finally, an image of the station at night. So it was really important for us that this was a safe 24-hour open station. By putting the station in this location where the natural goat kind of trails were, we feel that it's maintained and improved connectivity across the site. By eking out some green space, we think we've created a centre to the suburb that's more walkable than what was there. And the whole idea is that the number one thing we're pushing for was the urban response. So the architecture, the materiality, everything's kind of secondary to emphasising that this is public and public use rather than just transport. Thank you.